Hello, my friends. This is the Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today, and thanks for following the channel as we went through Blade Show 2017. I just want to do a special shout out to the individual who donated those images and videos to make that possible. I was not able to make SHOT Show or Blade Show this year, and with the help of other people, we were able to get some pictures and videos for those, so I'm very grateful for that. In this video, we're talking about the various approaches to general preparedness. So we have two main approaches here, and you can actually blend these together. So there's not just one or two ways. But in terms of approaches to general preparedness, the first way I see people mostly go at first, especially when they're new to all this, is the short-term preparedness. And it makes sense. You're kind of slowly getting yourself more adjusted to this whole lifestyle, if you will, of just being more prepared. It's sometimes also referred to as a micro preparedness. And that means pretty much, at least in my definition, it's like 2 weeks or under for being prepared for pretty much everything you need. And this is going to be, very much inclusive of your ability to bug in and bug out. And this is what kind of gets a little bit confused, because a lot of people just go to the whole creation of making a bug out bag, egress. And as we talked about on the channel, egress is something that at most only occurs about 10% of the times during a short-term emergency. So if we know that 90+% of the time we're going to be bugging in or sheltering in place, then we should probably at least devote about 90% of our attention and our resources to that goal, to be prepared for sheltering in place, and the remaining for egress or to bug out, to build that bug out bag or 72-hour kit. So that's the kind of the first thing here, is that we need to be aware of our priorities. And so if you're going this route and starting with short-term first, you want to look at least how to divide up your resources, attention, what you should focus on. The next approach is obviously long-term. And this focus is really more toward being self-sustainable. At least that's typically the ultimate goal, is to be totally self-sustainable. But I personally know no one that is 100% self-sustainable. Even the people I know that are very well prepared, more than I, are not off the grid completely. Or if they are off the electrical grid, for example, they're not off of other grids, like they still have to rely on a postal service for mail, or they have to rely on groceries for certain things, or certain types of medicines and things like that. And so in the modern day, though, it may be almost nearly impossible to be completely self-sufficient. Let's just be honest. I mean, you still sometimes have to go to a job, if you're not retired or whatever it is. You're reliant on the system on some level. And even if you are retired, you still have a retirement check coming in, and you're reliant on that. And if the grid went down and you didn't get that resource anymore, now you're having a different type of problem. So self-sufficiency. But for a lot of people, it just means a little bit less than total self-sufficiency. It means as much as practical for you. And for others that are just starting into long-term, in terms of that kind of preparedness, they're looking at maybe 2-3 months, and then they're working into 6 months, 9 months. And for a lot of people, even though it's just kind of a rounded off number, 1 year. That's just kind of like the goal for most people to get to. 1 year of everything you need. And that's definitely obtainable. Not real easy, but it's attainable. And you could do that over a course of several years to build that up. But then what? What after that? And that's where people typically go say, okay, I got 1 year of everything. Now I'm going to build up my self-sufficiency. I'm going to build up my means to gather water. I'm going to build up gardens or orchards, or I'm going to include more solar panels or wind turbines. I'm getting hit by bugs here, sorry. bugs everywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, that's when you start building up the homestead, is what I'm saying. And let's go ahead and look at this. Now, when you're looking at that type of approach, homesteading and long-term focus, a 90 to 95% of the focus should be on your main dwelling. That's how I would approach it, and how everybody else I know that have done this have done it. Only 5 to 10% would be for egress and alternative locations, because you got to have somewhere to egress too. And so it would include cache systems along the way and all that, but a heavy emphasis on homesteading. So that's something to kind of, once again, to look at. And so let's look at the main categories. I kind of, just to make it easy, I just put the top 11 here. 11 categories to really develop your preparedness within. And that's going to be water management, storage and procurement. Number 2, food storage, production and procurement. And this also includes cooking options. Number 3, safety and first aid resources. And that includes, of course, skills and knowledge of how to deal with certain emergencies. Number 4, energy management and resources. Number 5, hygiene management. Number 6, heating and cooling of your home. Number 7, lighting options. Number 8, tools and raw material management. And it's not just having tools, knowing how to use them as well. Number 9, barter and trade resources. Number 10, off-grid communications. And number 11, personal protection options. And yes, I did make that list up myself. I didn't go to some site and just, I'm going to just borrow that. And there's nothing wrong with getting inspiration from other sites and creating your own video. But I do see a lot of people actually just take all the information off of a site and regurgitate it. That is not what I'm doing here. But I would be very open to your thoughts and comments, though, about the subject matter in the comment section below. But most start with the short term first and then grow into the long term. But if you have the research done, if you take the time to do it, and you have the resources, in terms of cash, or, you can afford to increase your speed of all this, you can obviously save time in the long run and save money, because if you're doing, short term and long term at the same time, or even just doing the long term first, you will typically save money as well over the reverse. And that's because you won't have to really upgrade as much, if any at all, because you're already there. And you may say, well, what kind of things, would you need to upgrade if you're going from short term to long term? Well, we're not talking just about food. Obviously, that's going to have to happen. If you want to go from 2 weeks to 3 months, you're going to need more food and more containers of water or whatever. But you probably want to increase the capabilities of your first aid and trauma kits. You're going to probably want to have better communication options. That's for sure. And for long term, you're going to probably want to put a lot more infrastructure in place to create and harness energy. And I would have to say probably between solar, a wind turbine, and this, whatever else is in your area that's manageable or usable. I don't know what you have. For some people, it could be, trees. So you could use, the wood to create wood gas, or just to heat your home or cook off. There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's an echelon, there's a big pile of options if you look for energy. And so, yeah, if you work from the long term, you can actually get a little bit more bang for the buck, because things will be a little bit more clear, especially if you do all your research up front. Now, some people don't like taking a few months or even a year to do research, to actually know what they really want. But by doing that, you kind of avoid, if not completely eliminate, for the most part, all those impulse buys or those purchases that only an amateur would make. And I can tell you, over the years when I first started, I was actually quite young, and I really didn't understand a lot of things. When you're new to everything, you're like, whatever, a cutting tool is a cutting tool. How can they be different? Or freeze-dried food. That one looks just like that one over there. But what you find out is that they're not alike. A lot of things are not the same. Cutting tools have different types of steels. They're made at different types of tolerances. And foods have different ingredients. Sometimes they're sourced from, well, let's just say from sources that you wouldn't prefer, genetically modified organisms. Sometimes they have a lot of ingredients that you don't like, maybe like MSG, or they're just packed full of artificial flavoring and sugars and all kind of crap. So you kind of learn over time. And over the decades, I can tell you now, I'm like really picky about what I purchase. I mean, really, to the point it's actually hard to make a purchase anymore because I have to be really okay with it. And at least I now know what I don't want. And so my goal, going forth here is just finding the things I do want. And I think that's what you have to do. Filter out all the crap, all the things that don't work for you. And you'll notice that the bulk of things are not going to be for you. There's a lot of distractions out there. So if anything, if you get anything from this video, it's to just be acknowledging that people who have done this for decades still fall trap to the newest widgets and gadgets and gear that isn't necessary or needed, or it's just not even a good use of your resources, mainly your, cash. And, just don't be impulsive. Don't do it. I mean, wait a few weeks, a few months. I try to these days to wait 1 to 3 months before I purchase anything. And what happens is that the newness wears off. We've talked about this many times on the channel, but I need to continue this because we have hundreds and hundreds of new subscribers since I've talked about this. But the newness will wear off. And over time, you'll look back on that list and go, oh my gosh, why was I thinking about, purchasing that? And you'll just start marking things off. I just did it this morning. I have a list that's like about a month old, and I came back to that list and said I was just going to update the list because I always try to update things periodically. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could mark out half of the sheet, and I did because it was just not necessary. And I have a little bit of interest in knives and cutlery. It's like an addiction almost. And I tell you what, I had so many knives on that list and I was able to cut out almost all of them. And because the newness wear off and I realized that I really don't have a use for it, I probably wouldn't even use it because I already have the things that I use now and they work. And that's the key. You have to find things that work, that's practical, that you can afford, that you're not going to have regrets. I can't tell you how many times, it's not a lot, especially in the recent days, I haven't had this feeling for a long time. But going back 10 years and further, there's been a few, purchases every couple of years back then that would hit me, that I just got something and it was maybe a little bit expensive, at least according to my category of expensive, maybe $100 or $200. And wow, I got it and I was like, man, this is not what I want, or it took a while before I realized that it really wasn't what I wanted or needed. And that's kind of a bad feeling. Because you kind of feel like, wow, I'm not doing what I need to do to get ahead, or at least to maintain where I need to be if there was an emergency. And so preparedness is key for everyone to maintain their fluid motion through life. And if you don't have the ability to continue, continuity, then you're going to hit a brick wall at one day. You're just going to if you don't have food and you don't have any way to get energy in your body, you're just going to stop working. You'll just be like on the History Channel's Alone show. You'll just be so, wound down and empty in terms of no energy that you can't do anything. And that's when you get yourself in big problems. Like, for example, this morning, I was fasting. I was fasting since last night. I just broke the fast a few minutes ago. I had a big old bowl of various vegetables. And it was very awesome because it wasn't a long fast, but it was a good between 20 and 21 hour fast. Not bad or nothing, not hard to do, but I can't tell you what, when you're like an active person, like all morning and midday, I've been doing yard work and I mean, busting hump over here, just humping it. Man, I needed some food. Like I was wanting food. My body was really giving me some signals, eat. And I was like, no, I want to fast. And that's really hard on your body. So at least I've gotten to the point now that I can push through things like that, go a day or two without eating, without having major problems because I do it so much. But if you don't have the means to continue past then, you can't just continue to fast forever. And I see a lot of people say, it says you can live 30, and some people even live past that, 30 days without food. So I can do that if I had to. I'm like, dude, after a day or two, you're gonna really feel it, and your energy level is gonna drop off, and you won't be feeling like, you won't be feeling good at all. You'll be feeling like crap. And so people have all these ideas about, okay, I can get away with just doing this or having that, or I know so and so that knows that skill, so I don't need to learn it. Well, so and so may not be around. In fact, I hate to be morbid, but so and so might be dead, worst case scenario. So if you don't know how to make a fire, if you don't know how to cook your food, if you don't know where things are, especially things that are hidden on your property, like cache systems, you're going to be at a major disadvantage and you may not make it. So everybody needs to be on the same page. And that's why people should have their preparedness groups. And I think once a month is a good amount of time. It's not excessive, but it's not so far beyond people's memory that they forget what they talked about in the last group. I know people who do like preparedness groups every 3 months, and they can't even remember what they talked about. They don't know what's going on. You could ask them, well, what is your role in the group? What is your responsibility? And a lot of them have forgotten. So I think that's what we need to kind of just maintain our awareness of who we are within our prepper group. If you don't have a prepper group or a preparedness group, or just start being a little closer to people, closer to either family, neighbors, your friends, and build a small network there. Even though it may not be a formal group, at least you know that you can kind of work together because you have a better bond. You have a relationship that you can bounce off of. And so having the ability to trust another person and knowing another person, that's a pretty big deal. And that gets overlooked a lot in the preparation process. People typically just kind of want to just do their own thing. Sometimes I am a little bit guilty of this myself, that I just kind of want to do my own thing and just retreat from the world. And if something happened, I'll just take care of me, myself, and I. But you got to remember, though, you do need sometimes help. In fact, a lot of times it's really beneficial to have other people with you. And so even if you don't have a group, still set aside resources for other people. They may not know you're doing it, but people that you know that are probably going to come to you anyways for help. And then you can help them. But because they have skills, or because they can actually you can work together to help each other, it's a win-win for everyone. There are certain people that may come knocking that may not offer anything but headaches. That's up to you about saying no. And I've done videos on this, on how to say no. And it's been a very big video. A lot of people love that video because a lot of people don't really know how to set up the framework. And what you have to do is ahead of time, even though they don't have any clue of why you're even bringing up a subject matter of like preparedness and that you can't come to my house, or, you need to prepare now because you can't come to my house because I might have kids, or I have people that I'm responsible for, and my resources are for them and myself, not for you. And so telling another grown-up, another adult, that they have to take responsibility is actually kind of part of the whole, process of saying no to someone and doing these things in advance so that there is no excuse. Of course, you could always still have a small kit set aside for that person because you may still know that they won't ever do anything for themselves. And so you may still say, no, you can't come in here and you can't become part of our group. But then you might still be able to give them something, maybe a small bug out bag or some kind of kit to get them through a few days so they'll leave your property and they'll kind of, go without incident. And especially if you, have any kind of respect for that person. So anyways, this video is getting a little bit longer, so I'm going to cut this out. But thanks a lot for all your support. The channel is growing tremendously. We're hitting new records almost every day on views and subscribers and all kinds of stuff going on in this channel. It's just craziness. Super fast growth on this channel. So tell a friend and a family member about this channel. Hit the like button. Leave comments. Introduce yourself if you've never said hi. A lot of people watch but don't comment, and I understand. I do that a lot too. But this is kind of a community. You see, this is something that we kind of need to get a little bit more used to, saying hello and sharing a little bit of ideas about something. Bounce things around. And there's nothing wrong with talking to each other about the commonalities and the challenges that we faced, becoming prepared. And that's what this channel is. It's just a framework, and you know, you guys make up the body of the channel. And a lot of people go out of their way to help the channel in ways that you may never know. A lot of people throw me ideas for content, and some people actually give me content. And it's very impressive, the amount of people that have interest in this. A lot of people that go way out of their way to give more exposure to this channel. It's actually quite humbling. And so anyways, too long of a video. So you guys take care. Thanks a lot for your support, and I'll see you on the next video.